and welcome. Hello. Hey, everyone. Sorry. Welcome to our special Dreamforce webinar today to have a recap of all the announcements that have come out over, well, last week, but also the last few weeks building up to Dreamforce as well, because there was a lot. It was kind of overwhelming. It was also exciting. So much about AI, new certifications coming out, free licenses to some Salesforce products, which we'll dive into in a minute. We had a lot of people sign up for this webinar, so I'm just going to wait until the numbers kind of flatten out. But it'd be great to hear where you're dialing in from today, if you could let us know in the chat. And also whether you are at Dreamforce or not, would be great to hear. But I'm dialing in from London today. Mike, how about you?
I am dialing in from Tampa, Florida.
Very nice. Jesse?
Hey guys, in Connecticut, just out of New York. And yeah, I was at Dreamforce first time. It was great. Good to meet so many folks.
Right. And I'm out of San Francisco. I'm still here after Dreamforce.
Hey, Johan, I gotta ask, Johan, being there in San Francisco after Dreamforce, how is it nice to get your city back?
I don't know. I really haven't been out of the house since Thursday, like been downtown after Thursday. But I usually go in once or twice a week, so I'm not in downtown. That's the most lively I've seen downtown in a long time, actually. Just having all those people back there, all those businesses full of people. I haven't seen it like that in a long time.
Yeah, had a real buzz about it. All right, let's dive in now. I can see a few more people coming in, but we'll just do a bit of an introduction. So yeah, welcome to the Salesforce Ben webinar in partnership with Varonis to talk about some of the announcements that came out of Dreamforce, and there was a lot. Just to summarize a few of them, we had the announcement of the Einstein 1 platform. That was a pretty groundbreaking announcement that combined some of the AI innovations that Salesforce come up with, combined with their data cloud. We have Copilot, which is like a little assistant, which is going to sit within every Salesforce product and essentially allow you to interact with, just like ChatGPT, but in Salesforce and in relation to your Salesforce role, if you're a salesperson or a customer support on Service Cloud. We have Copilot Studio, which is the back end of Copilot, which Salesforce admins can use to customize the experience for their users. We had the pretty big announcement that Salesforce will be giving unlimited customers on the unlimited license and the enterprise license 2 free Tableau licenses and free Data Cloud starter licenses with, I think, you're allowed to have up to 10,000 profiles in that, which is really cool because it allows Salesforce admins and companies to get a grip on, this fairly complex bit of software. So very exciting there. And we also had 2 new certifications as well. This is about a week before Dreamforce, but we had the AI Associate and the Data Cloud certification as well. So very timely for these announcements to do with AI and to do with the free Data Cloud licenses as well. So we're going to be diving into a few of these topics and more today. Just to let you know, this webinar is being recorded and will be sent around afterwards in case you want to forward it to any of your colleagues. And we will be having a Q&A kind of throughout. This is an Ask Me Anything session. So you should see the Q&A tab at the bottom. And if you've got any questions throughout the session, then please feel free to ask them, and we'll try and get through as many as we can during the session, so you won't have to wait until the very end. So before we get started, we'll introduce our panel. So to introduce myself, I'm your host for today, Ben McCarthy, founder of Salesforce Ben. I've got about 12 years experience in the Salesforce ecosystem, and I'll go to Mike next.
Hey, Ben, thank you. Mike Mason here. I've been working in the Salesforce ecosystem for about 8 to 10 years now. So really look forward to working with you guys and sharing a little knowledge of what we learned at Dreamforce.
Great, thank you. And Jesse?
Great. Good to meet everybody. My name is Jesse Rosenbaum. I work for Varonis here on the East Coast. I've been working with Salesforce since 2009 as a user, spending a lot of time with Ben and his team and our team at Varonis, really digging into the back end of the platform the past few years here, and looking forward to sharing some of the things that we learned in Dreamforce.
Thanks, Jesse. And Nathan?
Hey, I'm Nathan Copinger, Product Marketing Manager at Varonis, and I'm relatively new to Salesforce and working in it for about a year from the security side. And this year's my first year at Dreamforce, and it was very exciting to get to be there.
Thank you. And Johan?
My name is Johan Kim. I'm a security architect at Salesforce. I've been at Salesforce 8 years, and I speak regularly with customers about security, infrastructure, and a lot about Shield and other products in our security portfolio.
Thank you. And last but not least, Andrew.
Hey, yeah, I'm Andrew Cook. I'm technical instructor at Salesforce Ben, so obviously work a lot with Ben. Been in the ecosystem for, I think it's 12 years now, been a while. And like Nathan, this was my first Dreamforce actually attending.
Great, thank you so much, everyone. So to kick things off, Mike, let's talk a bit about Dreamforce. So what were some of the things that stood out to you this year?
Yeah, what stood out to me most on the announcement side was the Einstein 1 platform, right? How they're definitely expanding that. Another thing that stood out that you've already talked about was those free data cloud and Tableau licenses. Also, guys, as this is interactive, feel free to put in the chat of what stood out for you in your announcements during Dreamforce. Another thing that stood out too was the data cloud. Data cloud was everywhere, right? It seemed like, Ben, this was the year of the data. And then on top of it was the Copilot Studio. Copilot Studio was pretty cool to see how you could use, as you put data, use your data inside of Salesforce with Copilot Studio. So those were some of the four that that definitely rung out to me.
Yeah, no, great points. Yeah, the data cloud one is super interesting, and there's actually a question coming from Ellie and Audrey about the actual how do you get hold of these licenses, and are they actually free? So I've read as kind of many places as possible here, and they do explicitly say it will be made available for everyone on enterprise and unlimited licenses, which are the top two tiers. If you're on professional or below that, then they won't be available. But I believe it is the full data cloud tool, just only up to 10,000 profiles. And Uzma's actually asked what does profile mean, and I believe it means a customer of yours, a single user, a single profile with all of the data being pumped in to that user. And I think the important point is here, that sounds like a lot, but for most companies who require a CDP like data cloud, it's going to be nothing. So it's not going to be usable. But for the purposes of getting up to speed with it, I think it's plenty. So as far as I'm aware, I don't know if anyone else has got input. It is as they say, it is going to be free data cloud.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. It's Ben. I read the same thing that you did. It's been free. So, if you need more clarification, I would highly recommend reaching out to your Salesforce AE. They would have the most updated information. But what we've been exposed to is the same thing. It's been a free license, right? To the full extent.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, maybe coming to you quickly, Andrew. You've got a course on Salesforce Ben about ChatGPT and using AI. Like, what were some of the most exciting things that came out of Dreamforce to do with AI for you?
For me, I mean, to echo what's already been said, the Einstein 1 platform, I think my favorite part of that was actually, so if you think back to when Salesforce announced the pricing of their GPT offerings, it was all a little bit confusing. Whereas now they've announced the Einstein 1 platform, I saw a really good infographic of every type of product that there is, and it just including all of the Einstein features. So a lot of things that previously people probably wouldn't have associated with AI, but which actually are. So things like opportunity scoring, lead scoring, things like that, which is AI, but because we've been using it for so long, we've not really linked it to this new wave of AI. So yeah, I think that was really, really good to kind of to understand it clearer in what exactly the offering is. And from a kind of technical background as well, I think just seeing some of the tools in action, like especially Einstein for developers, I think seeing that and that obviously now being in open beta, I think just seeing how it works and being able to finally get your hands on it and using it, I think that was really impressive.
Yeah, definitely. People are asking for the infographic if you have it to hand, Andrew. It does sound really cool.
I'll find it. And I'll pop it in the chat.
Nice. Terry's also mentioned the feature they announced where you're able to type in a sentence about your requirement and it will automatically create a flow for you. Like, you know, that's just kind of mind-blowing stuff. So yeah, a lot of exciting announcements coming out. So taking a slightly different tangent now. So, you know, while it's all well and good speaking about all these exciting AI announcements, trust and security have been big topics way before Dreamforce, but specifically at Dreamforce as well. So coming to you, Johan, working for Salesforce in the security space, what concerns should Salesforce professionals have, you know, when they're thinking about rolling out AI features?
You know, a lot of the questions that I get from customers is if I put data in Salesforce to be leveraged by AI, how do I know that my sensitive data information is protected? It's the same question we've always had for core, and it's a persisting question that we have for any of the other products that we've always released. It's one, how do we ensure sensitive data is not kept in there? How do I know other customers aren't using models that we've trained that have our data in it? And so we have something called the Einstein Trust Layer, which was on many slides at Dreamforce. And it's our approach to delivering generative AI that companies and enterprises can trust. The goal is to enable our customers to be comfortable putting their data into Salesforce to be leveraged by language learning models like LLMs with their customer data and without compromising security and privacy. And so there's several key functions in it. You know, on many of the architecture slides, there's the secure data retrieval, dynamic grounding, toxicity detection, but really, in my mind, there's a couple key like facets. It's that we have masking, data masking, which takes sensitive information in prompts and messages, and it able to mask those. So those when those are returned by generative AI, or you actually put sensitive information, it looks for those and strips them out. In the concept, and then there's a concept of zero retention, which means that prompts sent to these models aren't stored or retained, which reduces the potential for unauthorized access or leakage. And everything is audited and monitored, so that this is a forward-looking statement. But there's also discussion about a partnership around AI cloud logs. And if you have Shield, you already have a lot of logs about Salesforce as part of event monitoring, which is one of the products in Shield. But there's talk about having logs for AI as well. So I know you're showing how the trust layer works. So I talked about some of these facets right now. So the data masking, toxicity detection, it looks for if the outputs are generating something that is like unethical or like offensive, then that's one of the filters and features that is able to catch that before it goes back out.
One of the interesting things also for me in San Francisco, for the first time seeing a driverless car. So we think about like automation. There's some things that are, think back from Salesforce, there's probably some things that some of you on this call would be very comfortable automating and putting through an immediate kind of generative AI process. Maybe some other things you guys aren't so comfortable yet. Any early feedback maybe from our attendees of different processes or things that you're really excited about automating, you're really excited about using generative AI for, or maybe kind of to Johan's point, some of the more sensitive business processes that you're thinking about waiting on? Like somebody brought up the ability to use the automated flow. I think that's a great one. Like there's a couple, some tasks that we just do every single day that require maybe too many mouse clicks. And if we could automate those or create a prompt for those, that would be a huge time saver. Maybe some other things that, to Johan's point, that are very highly critical and business sensitive, that we need to take a step back and say, well, before we do this, we need to make sure that we do this, and this first. But that was the big takeaway for me, and I'm curious to get everyone else's take as well. Is there's going to be some things that are going to be immediate yeses for this type of structure, but over time, everything is going to go more this way. So just curious what the audience is seeing is like, what are the things that are going to be immediate yeses when it comes to generative AI? Yeah, meeting email recap. That was a big one. I saw that in Mark's keynote, and I felt like as a service tech, that would be huge. Like not having to go back. There was one for Slack that I really liked, where if you're on vacation, you come back, it will recap like what other people have said or like key things that you might have missed. I've had that happen where you shut off Slack and you come back from vacation and there's just like ping, 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 ping. You have to scroll all the way back, sometimes days, sometimes weeks, and read everybody's messages.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot for talking through that. I think this slide is super important, and it's kind of at the heart of Salesforce's messaging at the moment, because yeah, you know, this is one of the biggest concerns is what's happening to the data. So good to know we've got the secure gateway and all this other protection to stop data leaking happening. There's been a few questions around licensing at the moment. I know back in July, Salesforce, or licensing and pricing, Salesforce did announce pricing for what was then called Einstein GPT. And it was, as far as I understand, it's being rolled into the existing Sales Cloud Einstein and Service Cloud Einstein licenses. That might have changed since Dreamforce. I don't know if anyone else has got any input on that, but that was the last that I heard in July.
Same here, Ben. There's very limited information about that.
Yeah, there's another question here about how much of this will be made readily available and what do we need to pay for. I suppose based on the information available at the moment, I would kind of imagine everything would be paid for at this stage, but things may be made available for free in further releases. So that's what they did with kind of classic Einstein that was released in 2016. So you had you know, the kind of big bang release, but then slowly as some features were introduced, like Andrew said, I think was lead scoring, AI powered lead scoring was released as part of normal Sales Cloud licenses. So you know, we might see that in the future, but I think for now it will be paid. Great. So moving on then to a kind of separate but very much related topic is data. So, you know, data was talked a lot about this year, kind of in the form of data cloud. And, you know, we're a few years away from when big data was a buzzword and things like that. But AI is going to be powered by data. So you know, the foundational aspects of your Salesforce org, ensuring that data is in good health, it's up to date, it's correct. You know, all these things are really going to be important when you're implementing AI features in your Salesforce org. So Jesse, could you tell us a bit more about why data is more important than ever?
Yeah, sure. One of the things that really, I'm not sure if everyone caught Mark's keynote, but one of the things that really stood out for me, just watching it a few times, was Mark was having a conversation, CEO with a big bank, one of the largest ones in the world. And he said, yeah, I've got this LLM thing figured out. I know what I'm up to. I'm just going to take all of our customer data, mash it together, hit a button, and we're just going to spit out output. We're going to spit out outcomes. And Mark said, well, not so fast. You know, we work a lot with your team, your executives around the world. We work with your bankers. We understand who can see what. Are you familiar with our sharing model in Salesforce? And the CEO said, what do you mean? He's like, well, welcome to Salesforce. Welcome to org-wide defaults. Welcome to permission sharing models. Welcome to record sharing. The work that I think a lot of us are doing around protecting information and sharing and doing data validation using various tools like Validity and some other tools, I think are going to become more important in the future. I saw a really interesting demo around like what Williams and Sonoma was up to around automating a lot of their customer service, a lot of the customer sales and service processes. But if you have bad data and there's information that is being pulled that is not relevant to the LLM and it's not mapped to the right users and the wrong people can see it, like this is not going to be a great outcome for the business. And I think the work that a lot of us are responsible for, a lot of our customers are responsible for, Ben, going forward is going to become more critical than ever. The gas that's actually in the car has to be high quality or the output's going to be really poor.
Yeah, very, very true. I think it's kind of easy to get a bit distracted sometimes with all this kind of new flashy technology, but the fundamentals like data and adoption and still, like, are so important, because without that we can't do the exciting things.
Yeah, and yeah, garbage in, garbage out. And there've been some, I think even too, like with ChatGPT, one of the things that also really struck me about Salesforce, and I don't know if other folks feel the same way, is the ethos of the AI at Salesforce feels to be a bit different than some of the other folks in the market. I heard multiple times in multiple sessions, at Salesforce, your data is not our product. And I think comparing that to, not to name any names, right, but from some other companies in the tech space, that's a unique value proposition, I think, for Salesforce, and how we go about making sure that we live that ethos and we provide the right controls, and we can do that, I think, is really important. And I think it provides a lot, the foundational layer for what a lot of our companies are trying to do is it breeds a lot of trust, and it can help these things scale. But your data is not our product was another big takeaway I had from Salesforce. From Dreamforce, it's the ethos of what we're trying to deliver. It's not collection of data; it's usage of your data in a secure and in a way that drives value.
And Jesse, going on that topic, right? It goes back to what Salesforce has provided here. They provided an awesome platform that we all can build and do creative things on, but it also is the shared responsibility model. And Johan, I think you talked about this in your talk track there, right? There are certain things that Salesforce is going to take care of, and there's certain things that you're going to take care of. So everyone on this call, in some facet of an admin or not, right? Once you put data in, it's your responsibility to protect it. It's your responsibility to understand where it's going, who has access to that data, right? So as we collectively, like Data Cloud, we start putting more and more data inside of Salesforce and using these AI models to tell us, because if you really think about this, guys, take a step back. Isn't AI just data analytics, right? They're just using data and they're just providing output for you. So you don't have to have a data analytics license or a data analytics PhD, right? It's making it usable for everybody. And we got to think about this as like, we can do this in a cooperative manner as long as we have the right ways of doing this, the right inputs, as you say, right? Garbage in, garbage out. So just something to think about, right? As we all are in these roles of admins, how do we get the business to start putting that data in and having the right models?
Yeah, no, completely correct. There was quite an interesting point in the chat by Alex that says, one of the benefits of LLMs is teaching the bot about you, your business, your role, your purpose, your mission, and other details about yourself. With a zero retention approach, is this a benefit that will be lost because every prompt you have with the bot is essentially a new interaction? I don't know if you had any thoughts on that, Johan.
Yeah, I was just about to answer that question. Every prompt will be a relatively new interaction with your bot. Well, one of the benefits is you get to bring your own LLMs. We announced partnership with OpenAI. I guess the question is if you like submit to an LLM, will it train it? Like, will it remember? That's a good question. I am not completely sure about that. I think that the answer is that the bot will retain information, but it won't the LLM will retain some information, but not any confidential information. And that's one of the main points of it.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting topic, because I think, the zero retention and the masking data, that has to happen. That's a must. So I guess we need to find solutions outside of that. I would imagine, because Salesforce have their own LLMs, right? And I would imagine once they turn on these products, that the LLM that can generate, let's say, sales emails is only going to get better and better and better and better once it starts learning what people are actually using, even if it doesn't have information about the company in there. So that's what I would think. But yeah, very, very interesting point, one I actually haven't thought about before.
Yeah, I do wonder though, but given like the singularity of the fact that this is an LLM created custom for your organization, if it would get better in the sense that it's seeing tasks that people like you are asking for, as opposed to anyone on the internet's asking for this, and it's comparing to, it's maybe a smaller data set, but it's a more tailored and unique one and contextual one, where like if it's seeing 14 different salespeople asking for something similar, it's comparing against that smaller data set, but it's somebody that's just like you doing the same sort of thing, accessing the same sort of records and fields and contacts and objects. But
yeah, interesting. And I suppose to Johann's point, if you brought your own LLM that was completely off platform and belonged to you, maybe you wouldn't need the Einstein trust layer as much if it's going into a data set that you owned and a model that you owned.
One thing that kind of stood out to me is like someone coming from the security focus is as it kind of learns your language and your branding, if you're using it to send emails, you got to really make sure those accounts are locked down in case anyone were to breach or to decide to wreak havoc. They could create pretty convincing phishing emails to your campaign base. And that's something that's kind of worried me a little bit across most AI, not just Salesforce.
Yeah, definitely. All right, thanks so much for all your questions in the audience and the answers from the panel. If you've got any more, feel free to drop them in the chat. But Mike, I'd like to talk about permissions briefly. There was a lot of chat. I mean, there's been a lot of chat about permissions this year because of some major changes Salesforce are making, and this was referenced quite a lot of Dreamforce at all. So could you give us some insight into what these changes are?
In was it spring of 26 release, they are going to end of life permissions on profiles. So what does that really mean? It doesn't mean, I want to be very clear, it doesn't mean that profiles are going away. It means that permissions that were once on the profile are now going to sit on the permission set. For example, right? Like, let's talk about like tabs. User permissions are going to be all in the profiles now. Object permissions are going to be at the profile. Field permissions are going to be at the profile level. Connected app access, profile level. There will still be a few things on the profile, such as default record types in apps, just the default ones, right? There will be page layout assignments, and there will be a one-to-one relationship on logins and IP ranges. And the reason why they're doing this is going to be shifting you to getting you to the least privilege model, right? Because the way, as we put, Ben, as we just talked about, putting more and more data inside of Salesforce, right? This is going to be very important that the right people have the right access to the right data, because as they start using these prompts, if the access models are a little wonky, they will potentially release or expose more data than they're supposed to, depending on what the prompt is. So I know there's a season of tools out there to help you do this change or look at changes in the profile and permission set. I've been working on this with our product team, just so you guys are aware, working with Johan as well. We have a way to compare profiles and permission sets, or profiles against profiles, across your orgs or across many different orgs if you want. So you can see what the delta is to help you with this transition as they move permissions to the permission set. And we understand that you may have now a lot more permission sets, but what I would recommend is that those permission sets are very minimal, and they're labeled to the most appropriate way of what this permission set's doing, right? And so therefore you can get to your least privilege model in the most efficient way possible. It's a big change that we're all going to go through, but I think Ben and team, I think we can all learn from one another and make this a very simple transition as this change comes in spring 26.
Yeah, definitely. We've just done the workflow rule to flow migration, and now we've got another one coming up. So yeah, a lot to think about there, and very important to get it right as well. Just a question that's come through, I think, Andrea, this would be a good one for you. Nabin says they've tried Code Builder but can't find the GPT feature. But I believe it's been released this week, right?
Yes, I was just looking at that one as well. Yeah, it's been released, but it's only available currently in VS Code. Best thing to do is so I did the announcement article that we published for it. In there, it's got the instructions on how to get started with it. But yeah, at the moment, it's only with VS Code. My understanding is it is coming later to Code Builder, but it's not currently available for Code Builder.
Nice, but it is fairly easy to install, right? You just go, you get VS Code. I think it's an extension, is it?
Yeah, it's literally just an extension. You install that. It asks you to log into your org, and that's pretty much it. Actually, it's really straightforward. I mean, I worked out how to do it, so if I could, I'm sure most people can.
Nice, very cool. Thanks, Andrew. Great. So moving on, and Nathan, I'm going to come to you to talk a bit about Slack. So Slack, Slack was acquired a couple of years ago now, but Salesforce have made some pretty major changes over the past few years, kind of integrate it into their product suite. So what did you find so interesting about Slack at Dreamforce this year?
Yeah, so one, I actually kind of forgot they acquired Slack a couple of years ago, so it was a little bit of a surprise to be there and see it all over the place. But one thing they quietly seemed to launch earlier this year that I didn't hear about until I was there was Sales Elevate integration, where now you can actually pull in your leads into Slack and edit them, read them, I think share them. It seems like they're starting to kind of position themselves or position Slack to be the more user interface for your marketing and sales orgs to actually use Salesforce, because I know the adoption from them can be a little slow. So one thing I was kind of curious about from everyone here is how many people are already using that, how many people were aware of it or are planning to use it. And then with the Service Cloud integration coming along, where they're going to be able to create swarms where it pulls in all the relevant people into a channel to help solve any problems that people have, was something I found very interesting as well. And that will just continue kind of looping back to the data, continue to create more and more data in Slack. So now you have multiple areas you kind of have to watch to keep your Salesforce org secure between Slack and Salesforce, and permissions have to be managed down both areas.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Nathan. Yeah, I think it's really interesting the way that Salesforce are trying to make Slack kind of the default user interface, and then I guess you've got hub everything in one. You've got your collaboration space, your interaction with Salesforce. And I mean, it's not uncommon to hear from sales users about how they don't like using Salesforce. Adoption is a big issue. So hopefully this just makes it very easy, and there's like no excuses to not update Salesforce in the future.
I rarely
sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say I rarely get much email anymore. Actually, I mean, we use Slack for so much, for flows, and we like everything comes in through Slack now. I feel like that's kind of everyone's place to go in the morning and check up on tasks and messages. I think email is like really only if you, I mean, even attachments, people just post them in Slack now. At first, I kind of didn't like it, but now I'm starting to just expect it. So I see more integration, like the trend of having more integration in Slack, just always getting better and better.
And then they also have the Slack GPT coming too, to pretty much bring all the stuff that's going to be an Einstein 1 over to Slack to summarize your channels and your threads and just be able to grab everything. I think Jesse mentioned that a little earlier, which is very interesting and still a little scary though from a security standpoint to me. But if you have everything locked down, there's no issue.
Yeah.
For the shared responsibility model, right, Johan?
Yep. Everything in Slack, sits within the trusted boundary of Salesforce. So if it's in Slack, you should have assurance that it's protected.
Do you know by chance how the permissions on that side are kind of handled? Is it still going to be in line with what permissions you're doing on the Salesforce side, or is there going to be an additional layer of permissions you have to manage on the Slack side?
Slack has its own set of permissions and profiles. I actually am not familiar with all the admin functionality of Slack, but I know that when you set up permissions in core, you know, and profiles in core, those apply to all the core data. And I know we talked about data cloud earlier, and data cloud comes with its own set of like can profiles, or actually they're called permission sets. So those apply for data cloud. So I would kind of expect it to be the same for Slack.
Cool.
Great. Any additional insights, Andrew? I know you're a big fan of Slack.
Yeah, this has actually just come to me. I remember when I was at the Financial Times, we rolled out, because we had the same problem with sales users not wanting to do anything in Salesforce, because why would they? And we rolled out the Lightning for Google toolbar, which is essentially this feature now in Slack. But yes, it was just a way of managing contacts, leads, opportunities in a sidebar within Gmail. So I think that there's always been a need for people to work outside of Salesforce with their Salesforce records, and it just makes sense now that that's in Slack, because I mean, like Johan said, it's everywhere. It's what everyone goes to first before. I mean, it used to be emails, now it's just Slack. So yeah, it makes sense for it to all be in the one place. And also that one place now being totally managed by Salesforce, where in the past they maybe didn't have as much control over, like we've talked about, permissions and things like that.
Yeah, that's a really interesting comparison that I haven't heard made before, actually. But the Outlook sidebars versus Slack now, because it is just kind of a massively upgraded version of that, but also kind of changing the medium we're communicating in. While it used to be predominantly email, obviously now we're moving more to Slack, but also Slack with partners and customers as well, right? Like, it's not uncommon to hear people creating a Slack channel and inviting their external customers or partners to collaborate in that same channel as well. Cool. There was a question from Darlene here about the Salesforce user access and permission assistant. I think that's the one on the App Exchange at the moment, as a limitation of 5,000 users on report. Is this the same one that you guys were referring to earlier, or is there a new app coming out?
When I was referring to that, you know, there are many tools that Salesforce uses, and there's a reason why it's a free tool, right? Ben, what I was referring to is a tool that Varonis has built, right? There is no limitation on the user reports, and we're doing this across multiple instances. You can compare org to org, so you compare your production org to your sandbox org, things like that. So if Darlene wants to give it a try, I'd be happy to work with her to help her in that migration.
Nice.
Yes. Just pop that in the chat about what we built. Yeah, just pop that in the chat about what we built for that, so folks can see it.
Nice, sounds good. And while we're on this topic as well, we could talk a bit about Salesforce Shield, because that kind of ties into permissions and user access and things like that. Johan, would you mind giving us a quick overview on what Salesforce Shield actually is?
Sure. Salesforce Shield is the name of a bundle of 4 products: platform encryption, which is enhanced capabilities for key management and encrypting more fields in Salesforce; event monitoring, which tells you what's going on in Salesforce, user activity, who's downloading what API calls are being made, who's accessing which record; field audit trail, which tells you who changed a field from what record, or from what value to what value, who did it when; and then data detect, which helps you to identify and classify sensitive data in Salesforce. Event monitoring could tell you which users accessed a specific field when, or if you look at a specific user, which records that user accessed. A good way that this ties together is if you have like a profile and a user in a profile that hasn't used much of that profile, like maybe they're in an over permissioned profile and you want to check what kind of access this user has had historically. Event monitoring would tell you what a user did, what records they accessed, when they did it, maybe they don't need to have such over-permissioned access. They haven't used it in a while historically, and so that you could verify that kind of information with event monitoring.
Nice, perfect. And I believe Varonis have just integrated into Salesforce Shield as well. Is that right?
It is, Ben. That was one of our announcements at Dreamforce. So if you're using or have Shield and you want us to consume and correlate those logs, we can correlate those logs for you in a robust way. And then in addition to that, we will also tell you why that person did that activity because of this profile, this permission set. And then we'll also tell you if the data was sensitive, right? Because we have the ability to classify data on fields and attachments inside of your Salesforce environment. So we've been working with Johan very closely on the Shield integration.
This is a question that comes up a lot in security conversations. We don't have a specific product to address like comparing and really understanding access in Salesforce, like who has access to what, who sees what, who can edit these records and objects, and who can only view them. We do have the user access and permissions assistant that's been around, and that's the free one. But in my opinion, that's one of the things that can be done so many different ways. Sometimes, and there's so many use cases. Sometimes people want to just understand who has the specific, like modify all data or view all data permission set. Or sometimes an admin wants to see what's the difference between these two profiles. Like, can we? Were they cloned or and modified? Like, were they created from scratch? Like, why would we have a person in one profile versus another? They look really similar, and like trying to understand, it's a challenge sometimes.
Yeah, great. Thanks for all that, guys. Just to go for a few questions in the chat, and we've still got a bit of time, so feel free to submit them. One from, you're answering this one, Johan. Do you want to go ahead and answer it? The one from Wally. Is Data Cloud required to use AI prompts in Salesforce?
My understanding is that it's not, but by having Data Cloud and then having your data in Data Cloud, you can bring much more data and then thus have much more useful outputs from that data.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well. It can be used completely standalone, but it's enhanced with Data Cloud. Cool. All right. Yeah, as I said, we've still got a few more minutes left before Q2. So if there are any more questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. But for now, Hyperforce, Johan, coming to you again. A lot of people might have heard Hyperforce over the last few years, but I know it's being rolled out to more countries at the moment. So could you give us an idea of what Hyperforce is and why it's so important at this time?
Sure. Hyperforce is Salesforce on public cloud. It's been an initiative that's been going on, as I understand it, for almost 8 years. That was like when the idea first happened, so a while. But actually, the cool stuff has been happening more recently with a lot of our customers being moved to Hyperforce. So some customers, especially on this call, may already be on Hyperforce. So it's Salesforce on AWS. It addresses data residency. We're live in 14 different regions right now with 3 more coming. Scalability, it's security, privacy, and agility. Like it's secure by default. We have zero trust infrastructure. I'd say Hyperforce is better than first party in almost every way. We get all the benefits of the availability of AWS. We're going to use their availability zones. You're basically in three availability zones, and then it's Hyperforce is immutable. So it means that the applications config, server configures can't be modified, and this minimizes a lot of risk and vulnerability and error, and that's where it's headed. So eventually all customers will be on Hyperforce in the next 18 to 24 months.
Cool, great, thanks a lot, Johan. All right, I think we're ready to wrap up then. So thank you very much for everyone for joining us today. We had a lot of people on this live webinar, so thank you for spending the past 45 minutes with us. Just before we wrap up, we're going to do a quick poll that I believe someone in the background is going to launch. Just love to understand how you found today. But while people are just answering that, let's go around the room with a few closing words. So, Mike, any final words, or maybe what you're most looking forward to coming out of Dreamforce?
Yeah, like when you start coming out of Dreamforce, I'm really looking at that prompt studio, right? How can we use the data with inside of Salesforce to make us better, right? Like, you know, we pump a lot of data inside of Salesforce, our company alone. You know, we use Salesforce extensively, right? And I'm always interested in how we can leverage the data the analytics behind that data to make us smarter and do more with our data, right? This is if you, depending on what you read, it says data is the new oil, right? And how do we leverage that? So really excited to try Prompt Studio and to see how it can help us.
Great, thanks so much, Mike. Thanks for being here today. And Jesse?
Yeah, I think our data is not your product. Just living that ethos through everything that we build at Varonis and everything that we're working with our customers for. I just think as we think about the power of artificial intelligence, generative AI, and eventually autonomous AI, knowing that everything that we're building and that we're trying to deliver for our customers is using the data that they own, that they have access to, that is not being consumed or shared. I feel really good about that coming out of Dreamforce, and I'm really proud to be a part of that mission.
Great, thank you. Nathan?
Honestly, it's pretty simple, but I'm excited for all the AI to make Salesforce more simple for me as someone who's relatively new to it and kind of a little clunky in there. So I think that'll help streamline my job a little bit.
Great. And Johan?
I'm looking for all the improvements in Salesforce. I talk about Shield a lot, so I love to see more events, more security capabilities, and helping our customers feel better about and protecting their data and making it easier to do so.
Great, thanks, Johan. And Andrew?
For me, I think one thing that I'm really excited about is the tools that are being introduced that's going to make it easier for people to go into developer roles. So if you're, say, an admin and you're thinking about going into a developer, I mean, you'll now have things like Einstein for developers to help you write code. There'll be as well the Apex Guru feature as well, which will help you scan your org and see differences in or in recommendations, in existing code and that you've already got and how you can improve it. I think that's going to be really, really interesting, because I know that it's always a big skills gap between admins and developers, and I think that will definitely bridge that.
Great, thank you very much. And that was everyone, right? I haven't missed out anyone. There's a lot of people on this call. I think we're good.
Good.
Cool.
We're gonna between myself and Mike and Nathan, we're gonna be at our World Tour. I'm not sure, Ben, if you and your team are gonna be there in New York in December. But we'll be there. We'll have a big presence there. So if you're local, come, stop by, say hello. It's always love to meet people in person, like IRL, right, in real life, that you meet over the sessions like these. So it's always fun. So, like Ben, we had a chance to met Ben for the first time at the Dreamforce after party that we hosted on Tuesday last week. That was fun.
Looks like someone in the comments was there and said thanks for the tacos. So you are very welcome. So great. Well, thank you everyone for coming along today, and yeah, really looking forward to everything that's been mentioned. But I just feel inspired. I think that's what part of Dreamforce is, like showing you a glimpse of what the future is going to be. And the future looks pretty exciting. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending today, and we'll see you on the next webinar.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.